Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Thanks for joining us today. Well, on the channel, we've had the opportunity to review several products from Canik, and today we have the latest offering, the SFX Rival, a handgun which they say is designed for competitive shooting. With all those features and improvements, it should make for a great handgun. The question, of course, is, does it make a good handgun for concealed carry? Well, we're going to try to answer those questions in just a minute. All right, once again, welcome back. Thanks for being with us. If this is your first time coming to the channel, or if you've been watching our videos and you just haven't had a chance to do so, and you like our content, please consider subscribing. You can find that little subscribe button in the lower right-hand corner of your computer screen. You can hit that button, or you can scroll down below the video if you're on a mobile device and subscribe that way. It's a simple thing that helps us out a lot, and we really, really appreciate it. So, the SFX Rival by Canik. Well, we've had the opportunity, as I said, to review several of the Canik products on the channel up to this point. So this is going to be a little bit different, and let's just start off the way we normally do, and let's get a little size scale comparison here. You can probably already tell before I pick up another handgun that it's pretty big. Well, so here's a Glock 17, just for comparison. Now, if you've held a Glock 17 or carried a Glock 17, you know it's a pretty good handgun to have on your hip. Now, once again, this is a gun that's designed for competitive shooting, so it's going to be a little big. We'll have to get to how that translates over into being carried in a little bit, but I do have some concerns right off the bat just because it's so much handgun. But we'll get to there when we get a chance. So, obviously, you know, you've got a lot more length. Let's even these up a little bit. And you can see that, you know, you've got a lot more length in the barrel. And keep in mind, you know, this is a gun designed for competitive shooting. So it has requirements as far as size to make it an actual competitive handgun. So a lot of what you're seeing is because it has to be a certain specification gun to be used for that purpose. So anyway, that gives you a pretty good idea of what you're looking at as far as the size. And that's going to be a consideration, definitely, when you're figuring out how you're going to carry it. We're going to jump right into the features here, but before we do, of course, I want to take a moment to thank our friends over at Don's Weaponry for providing us this beautiful example of this Canik SFX Rival for our tabletop review today. Don's Weaponry is a huge supporter of firearms safety and education, and we can't thank them enough for their support. So, in no particular order, we're going to take a look at this thing. Once again, this is a lot of handgun, but we're going to focus kind of a top-down like we normally do. And you probably have noticed right from the very beginning the slides. Let's talk about that first. You've got all these cuts in the slide. Obviously, we're talking about a handgun that actually has a 5-inch barrel, but an overall length of 8.1 inches. So obviously you've got these lightning cuts in the slide to get the balance and the performance where it needs to be. You notice a lot of aggressive texturing on the handgun. Lots of really, really aggressive cuts here in the front especially. And of course you can see the cuts they've made here underneath. Just a lot of detail has gone into this. And you can even see, looking at the barrel, you've got some texturing with this that goes right along with the design on the slide. So a lot of thought's gone into the overall look of this thing. You've probably noticed here on the top, looking at your sights, you've got your rear sight. Look down, you can see that's a fiber optic front sight. So it's a pretty good sight setup for any situation. Obviously this is designed for competitive shooting, but this would be a good sight picture to use in any case. You've probably heard say before, if you've watched any of the other videos, just for me, at bare minimum, I like to have a fiber optic sight on the front just because the visibility is so much better than a painted sight. So, also, if you look right here, you can see that this is a removable plate because this firearm is optics ready. And they do give you several plates included with the firearm that you can use for that purpose. You can see you do have a 1913 Picatinny rail. So if you would like to have a lighter laser system mounted on the firearm, you can do that. Obviously, you know, a gun like this would be a good, home defense weapon as well. So if you wanted something like that to assist being able to see in bad low light conditions, whatever, you can put a light on there, no problem. You have your slide release here, and if you'll look, you will see that that is ambidextrous. So you have slide release on both sides there. Your takedown lever, you've got identical little spots you can see here and on the other side, and similar to like on a Glock, of course, you'll pull the slide back slightly and just pull those down, and then you can slide slightly forward and up. There's a little small cutout, small area where you'll pull it forward and up. I have some previous videos on Caniks where you can see a full teardown if you want to look at that, but it's pretty simple. You've got your grip here. If you look, you've got pretty not super aggressive texturing. It's a lot like what you see on a lot of the smaller SIGs. Some of the other compact, subcompact guns, you've got this lighter texturing here. And of course you've got more of the tougher raised bumps on the back here. Now you also have different back straps for this, 3 different ones, so you can custom fit this to the size that makes you the happiest when you're using it. This is your magazine release. It is reversible, so if you are a lefty, you can turn that around. We'll go ahead and take this moment, do a little safety check with our mag release. You see we can pop that out. This is a 18 round magazine, and with this particular setup you get 2. It can be ordered with 3, so it just depends on how you order it to come to you. This particular one has 2. I'm going to go ahead and let you see that the firearm is clear. There's nothing in the chamber, and of course our magazine was empty. I'm going to go ahead and turn to the back real quick. As you can see, when I rack the slide, you notice this little red dot is present in the rear. You've probably seen this before. That is just a cock striker indicator, because if you notice when I pull the trigger, that goes away. That is not a loaded chamber indicator. Make sure you know the difference. That is just a cock striker. That's all that tells you. Okay. Your trigger, we'll get into some of the specifics about the trigger, but one of the things that I have talked about on Caniks before is just how good these triggers are on these guns, and this one is no exception. We're going to get to that, like I say, once again in just a second. There is an available mag weld that comes with this, if you want to put that over there to complete the look and the functionality. Depending on how you plan on using this firearm might depend on whether you actually want to use that or not. So, looking at the handgun, obviously you get a lot of features. You get a pretty good sight setup right out of the box with that fiber optic. And you do get either 2 or 3 18-round magazines, depending on how it's ordered. So it's a pretty good package right out of the box. Of course, when you have a firearm that's been designed for competitive shooting, the first thing you want to know is, well, how's it shoot? Well, the Caniks that we've looked at up to this point have all been really, really good shooting firearms. So let's talk about a little bit about our test ammo. I always try to get a good mixture of just regular range ammo. The S&B here is really good. Of course, this is 115 grain FMJ, and then of course I have some of the PMC bronze, which is also 115 grain. These are very similar rounds. I get similar results out of these, and so I tend to lean more toward these. And of course, for defensive ammo, I never try a firearm unless it gets some of the SIG V Crown 115 grain jacketed hollow point. Now, I've got some others laying around too. I've got some Remington. I've got some of the Critical Duty here. I usually try about 4 or 5 different rounds on the handgun, and the Caniks have all been pretty forgiving. No issues with being picky with any of the ammunition I've tried in it. So it's been a pretty good handgun so far from that standpoint. So let's talk about the range. Let me do a quick safety check for you here. You can see that our magazine is out. It's empty. And you look here, you can see that we are all clear. And let's talk about this trigger, because this is something I just can't get over. So there's a lot of handguns that I like to shoot that have got really good triggers. They're even advertised as being, short reset competition triggers. But I want you to take a look at this. So we engage the trigger, and once you get your trigger safety engaged, you have just a slight amount of take up and then there you are. Now, I'm going to recycle the slide, and I want you to watch the reset. I barely got any pressure off the trigger, and then here we are, engaged. Watch that again. And then back. It's absolutely incredible. And why does that matter? Well, if you've shot competitively, you know why that matters, because a well-balanced firearm, along with a fast, a very good reset trigger that is easy to engage, your follow-up shots are just absolutely incredible. All the Canik pistols that I've shot up to this point have had extremely good balance and extremely good reliability, and the triggers have been fantastic, and this has upped the ante for all of them. So if you're looking for a firearm that has incredible smoothness, great trigger and accuracy, then this definitely will qualify. Canik firearms, during some of these range sessions, we've let people who have never shot a firearm before, or it's their first or second time, new people, got their hands. We like to try to, have other people shoot these and kind of see what they think, as opposed to just seasoned shooters. And even people who have never shot before have found the Caniks are very easy to get good shots and begin to produce decent groups in a short period of time. I shoot defensively. I practice at 21 feet, but a firearm like this, you can shoot much further away, just to kind of see how well you can do. And it's a very accurate firearm. It seems to be well made, and like all the Caniks that I've seen up to this point, the quality is there and the performance is there. So we started off talking about the features and how, good of a firearm this can be, but there's a good question that needs to be addressed here at some point, and that is, is this a decent carry gun? And there will be people that argue with you what kind of the size limit is going to be on a carry gun. And like I say, this is all up to the individual. For me, this is a bit larger than typically what I will carry. In the beginning I showed you these, the Glock 17, how this firearm is a lot larger than even the Glock 17, and the 17 is a bit more than I will typically carry as concealed firearm. Having said that, I'm not saying you can't do it. Now, Canik is pretty good about giving you stuff. They give you back plates, for the grip. They give you optics mounts. They give you nice cleaning kits. They give you extra magazines. They like to give you stuff. Well, in this case, they've also given you a little holster. Now, obviously, this is not the greatest thing in the world, but it is a pretty decently made holster with a pretty, pronounced bit of retention when it snaps in there. Of course, this is an outside the waistband holster. It reminds me a little bit of a Black Hawk. It just doesn't have the, this part, this mounting part. But obviously, this covers the trigger guard completely, covers the barrel completely, and takes a little bit of force to get that out. Now, if you're going to carry the gun in this type of holster, well, obviously, this is definitely where you have to dress around the firearm, because outside the holster, you have a lot of firearm sticking down. Outside the waistband, you have a lot of holster and a lot of firearm that are sticking down. So the only way I can carry something like this is if I'm wearing an inner shirt, like a t-shirt, then an outer shirt, and the outer shirt, of course, is going to cover down to here. So, comfort level. Well, if you're carrying a firearm like this, I hear people tell me all the time, well, it feels light. It's a really well-made firearm that's got a light, holster, it's, made out of light materials. That is true, but you have to remember something. This is an 18-round magazine, and by the time you put 18 rounds of defensive ammo inside this magazine, it is no longer a light pistol. I don't care what kind of pistol it is. When you have 18 rounds of 9mm ammunition inside the firearm, it gets heavy. So this holster is actually pretty nice. I've got a couple of really good belts, including a core. That core belt is just super, super rugged and stiff. It's probably the best carry belt I own. So the holster is good and stable inside that holster because it's on a good belt, but I can still feel the weight. So for me, something like this, great. If you want to have a good home defense pistol, you know, obviously it is a obvious choice. If you want something that's good for, you know, competitive shooting, just general sport shooting, I think it's a great choice for that too. For me, just because of the size, it's not exactly a carry gun. I can carry it outside the waistband. Now, if I was, you know, out in the woods on a property or something like that, and I was looking to carry something, this might be something I would look at. It's a little much as far as a realistic everyday carry. And the main reason I say that is, you know, you've heard me talk before that one of the big factors in deciding a carry gun is going to be comfort. There's many other things you have to think about as well, but comfort is a big deal. And if you have a firearm that's this big, you got to have just the right kind of holster combination to carry it in the first place. And trying to conceal something like this is extremely difficult. There are many that do it successfully, so don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it can't be done, and I'm not even saying anything negative about those that can. It's just something to think about. It's a lot more firearm than I'm going to carry on me in just about any instance. Overall impressions of the Canik SFX Rival. Well, let's be fair. It's a really good firearm. It's a very good shooting firearm. A tremendous amount of detail and thought has gone into the design of the handgun. Fantastic trigger. You've got reversible mag release. You've got ambidextrous slide stop. Really nice design. It's optics ready, and you know, it just feels good in the hand. That's the other thing about Canik, is that the grip and the design is very ergonomic. It's a really good handgun. So the question is, what's its role? You know, for me, a handgun this size, I'm typically not going to refer to this as a concealed carry handgun. It can be done. I know people who carry, you know, guns this size or larger all the time concealed, and they're really happy with it. But that would depend on, you know, what your application is. If you work in an environment where you can stand up all day long and you can holster something, you know, to your side and keep it covered with clothing, that's probably a lot easier than, like in my case, I have to get up and down a lot. I go from the car to sitting in an office to walking around, and all that adjusting, getting up, I don't think I could really comfortably carry something like this on me. That doesn't mean it's not a great choice for me, for say home defense and just general shooting. And of course, if you want to get competitive with your buddies, this would be a great firearm to break out for that purpose. But for me, this is not exactly a concealed carry handgun. But for those that carry larger firearms, if you're used to carrying something that size, you should take a look at this, because it's a really, really good shooting firearm. Canik did not disappoint. All right. Well, that's going to do it for today. We really appreciate you joining us as usual. We're going to be back soon with another video for you. So until that time, as always, everyone be safe and have a great day. Thank you so much.